Could you please tell our viewers about your background and why you feel qualified to create these videos which seeks to protect investors from the Wall Street casino?
Well, it's been a long, strange trip, as Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead might say. Previously to getting into the financial service businesses, I worked in international communications and high technology, traveling around the country selling components to infrared missiles, mostly in Southern California. After that, I sold power supplies for the electronics industry, which went into everything from supercomputers to satellites. And since getting into the financial service business in 1983, I owned a pension consulting business, a third-party benefit administration firm, a registered investment advisor, and I became a best-selling author on a series of books about Wall Street corruption.
How did you get into the financial services business? How did that come about?
Well, around 1983 or so, I got laid off from the job selling power supplies. I was traveling a lot, working very hard, and I made some bad career choices, frankly. I didn't really want to work for anyone else anymore. I learned that many successful people were self-employed, so I got into the business really by default of selling life insurance and other products for Prudential. I ended up being one of the Rookies of the Year for them. I sold a lot of policies, but it was brutal rejection. Life insurance was a very hard sell back then when interest rates were going to double digits, when Paul Volcker was head of the Federal Reserve. Back then, money began to flow into the Wall Street casino in a very big way, and CDs were earning double digits.
How long did you stay with Prudential?
Well, not so long. In the corporate world, I was used to selling to corporate America, and Prudential was more or less a door-to-door selling, like something out of an Arthur Miller play, Death of a Salesman. I started here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, in the seacoast of New Hampshire, but moved back to Massachusetts, where I was originally from. I went to work with the general agent from New England Life. That was a great move. Most of the agents and advisors who I was working with were very entrepreneurial, self-employed business people. I started working with small business owners, doctors, athletes, high net worth people. It was very difficult, but I made a good living and I made some investments, and I liked the retirement business. I decided to master pensions because at the time it was mostly insurance companies that managed pensions and did, frankly, a best job securing retirement income. Also, I had a mentor at one of the home offices, and I read a lot of the tax code and at the time. Before he knew it, I had a block of pensions and profit-sharing plans, and I was ministering and giving investment advice to them. And I was getting business from accountants. I was a small businessman at the time, and I had my first employees, but I was newly married, and I was working 60, 70 hours a week.
What happened to the retirement business?
Well, at the time, I ended up selling the block of plans back to New England Life. It was a tough time for me personally. I had a young family. I was beginning to do a lot of group health insurance, which was far more lucrative than retirement plans. Then I lost my only brother down in Virginia. It was a very difficult time. My brother was single, and he ended up settling his estate, selling his real estate, and so forth. And I had a good sized life policy on his life, and that money actually helped at a very stressful time. And it was actually the life insurance which actually helped finance my next business, which I started called the Merrimack Benefit Group, Inc., which designed, administered, and funded health and welfare plans, which were commonly known as cafeteria plans, which were a big deal back then. I started with a partner, and it was one of the first flexible benefit administration plans in New England. It was started in an old mill building in Lawrence, Massachusetts. We later moved that to North Andover.
What happened to that business?
Well, being a startup business, it was brutal, as anyone who started a business will tell you, but eventually the business took off. At one point, we were growing 40% a year. We were going to be put on the Inc. 500, but in any event, we were getting 60 to 70% of our business from accounting firms, law firms, and venture capitalists, because we go into the corporations, whether it be small or medium size, and deliver legitimate tax savings, huge sometimes, so we were generally welcome. We also had a consulting side, which we did employee benefit communications, audits, and we went into pulling the benefit plans together for small and medium-sized business, and even got some large public companies. We set up self-funded benefit plans for health, and did one of the first self-funded HMOs in Massachusetts, I might add. The business took off, but so did the overhead. It was a was incredibly volatile. Major clients who we sold or did business with were sold to Cisco, Siemens, and Bisis. Overnight, our revenue stream was chopped in half, and we had about 12 people in the payroll, and we had to break the business up to survive. My partner at the time acquired the administration business. I took over the consulting and the insurance agency piece. It was difficult, but we borrowed a good amount of money, and we had borrowed a good amount of money from the bank for operating capital equipment, and it was no fun. I ended up paying down the credit lines with Bank of America. It was brutal, but I did it.
So what happened after that?
Well, I continued doing benefits for corporations, but the health insurance component was increasingly stressful. I had moved up to the seacoast of New Hampshire, where I live today, and I still love it. In any event, I realized I had to reinvent myself into financial planning and investment management. So I dedicated myself to the LEAP system of financial planning developed by Robert Castiglione of New Jersey. I also started a registered investment advisory firm in 2001, which I still own today. I learned from Bob Castiglione's perspective that much of what we hear from financial institutions, the mutual fund companies, the banks, the asset managers, so much of what they promote is just plain and simple propaganda for financial institutions. Bob Castiglione, a legend of the life industry, showed me that from a mathematical perspective, and I'm a numbers guy, that much of the financial planning universe, the 401ks, the 529s, the mutual funds, the term life insurance, were dream sheets which benefit banks and not much for the consumer. If consumers are really wealthy, well, back at the time, retirement plans get taxed about as high as 95% with income tax and estate taxes. So I began to question everything about finance, everything from the media to the financial institutions. We essentially got a tidal wave of misinformation.
And then what happened?
Simultaneous around 1997 or so, I was reading everything I could get my hands on about banking, investing, and had some great awakenings. I learned that the Federal Reserve System was not part of the federal government, and that much information about savings plans like 401ks was a joke. I learned the central banks, like the Federal Reserve, were at the heart of the country's financial woes for Main Street America then and today. Remember, around 1999, 2000, 85 cents in every dollar was going into high-tech mutual funds. Then the dot-com meltdown happened in 99, 2000, and the crash came about. It was a disaster. Few people realize it, but more than 75% of the companies that were listed on the NASDAQ at this period are no longer in existence. That's 75% of the companies, they're gone. Companies like Petcom, Pets.com, WebVM were exploding all over the place, and the corruption within Wall Street was incomprehensible. Analysts behind closed doors were calling companies crap, while the investment banking side of the house was dumping the companies in public markets. It was criminal. And then I decided to do my first book, which documents this Wall Street corruption. You can read all about it in my first book, The Pirates of Manhattan, which I self-published in 2007. The book has sold more than 30,000 copies in 23 countries.
Why was the book so popular?
Well, I summarize how Wall Street, the banks, the asset management industrial complex essentially hijacked American savings. I learned that a lot of information being sold to the American public, like Fidelity Green Arrows or Jack Bowles indexing, needed to be taken with a grain of salt. Using public information from the SEC, the Federal Reserve, and FINRA, I documented how the American public was being screwed by mutual fund industry. Late trading, front renting, corrupt bank analysts, so much corruption, and no one ever went to jail. And this was before 2007, 2008. So much of what is being told the American public, quite frankly, is BS, plain and simple. It was not stopped, and I knew that no one, the problem is no one knows the future, no one knows what interest rates will be, no one knows what inflation will be, or whether people will live or die, but the major financial questions anyone should be asking themselves, but the media never addressed these things. A major takeaway that then as of today is that there's no financial education in America. It's more of an indoctrination system. It's not the truth.
So you are doing these videos and writing these books to educate the American population?
Exactly. And I've been blessed, and another mentor entered into my life, R. Nelson Nash from Birmingham, Alabama. Nelson began to educate me about banking, Austrian economics, which I'm a student of, and how life insurance was one of the best ways to warehouse your wealth and get rid of a bank. Nelson taught me how you could finance the purchase of your own automobiles with a bank. Nelson encouraged me in my research on to view life insurance from an economic point of view. It was Robert Castiglione who showed me from all the inconsistencies from the fantasies from from a mathematical point of view. But what put me on the radar, or the national stage, if you will, was that I was the guy who discovered that the banks and the asset managers, the Federal Reserve, J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup, Citizens Bank, Wells Fargo, all these giant financial institutions were giant hypocrites. They promoted gambling for their business models for their customers, but invested their own products into safe, conservative financial instruments, such as high cash value life insurance and annuities for their own accounts.
So this is why you are so passionate about helping the little guy, your customers and fans?
Exactly. America's in a retirement crisis, there's no question about it. We're being sold a bill of fake goods, as Robert Kiyosaki from Rich Dad, Poor Dad would say. We have fake goods, fake retirement products, and fake information from the mainstream media. 40% of the American public cannot come up with $400 for an emergency. There is no financial education in the U.S., only financial indoctrination. It's financial fascism, if you will. Lawyers paper over all the communication to the public, but the people helping put people into investment they do not understand and essentially throw the American public overboard. If people lose 99.9% of the money, the American public does not know they have some type of arbitration agreement. I'm no saint, but to me this is morally wrong, and I think most people would agree. And also much of the academic narrative coming out of Ivy League is driven by the giant mutual fund companies who've never had to meet a payroll. The Oscar-winning documentary Inside Job did a very good exposing this corruption within academia. Anyhow, they're a bunch of economic bullies, and I can't stand economic bullies. I feel if you give people honest information, you work hard and tell them the truth, more often than not, they'll make the right decisions. Wall Street and the asset managers are all chasing rates of return, or in the case of target date mutual funds, the projected rates of return. It's all economic theory, but at best it's a guess or a scam. The best assets are really for personally are to have discipline, persistence, thrift, have a consistent rate of savings and self-education, which the American public really has no financial education.
So what does Castle Asset Management do today which makes them different than all other financial advisors out there? What makes you different?
Well, this may sound corny, but we tell the truth. We try to tell the truth. We have to make like everyone else, but telling the truth is more important, we feel. We have a ton of experience. We have done work with individuals, high net worth people, privately held companies, Fortune 100 companies, and even some celebrities. We're registered investment advisors, so we have a legal fiduciary duty to represent our clients first, which is not the case for the brokerage firm, a mutual fund company, or a bank. As a best-selling author, my books have sold in 23 countries, so we must be doing something right. Our team here, and I'm proud of them, have decades of institutional experience with major financial institutions. We do business not just locally here in the Seacoast, which we love, but also throughout the country. We have some people invested seven figures when we've never met them personally, which is kind of rewarding. We believe that financial planning, tax strategy, discipline, thrift, honesty, integrity, and tenacity are more important than chasing returns. We communicate with pilots. We do not mislead clients like we've seen a lot of bank trust departments and major brokerage do with fictitious rates of return. We do not fool in crazy alternative investments like hedge funds and private equity and putting people's money in a headlock. We treat customers' money as if it's our own.
You really care about your clients. Can you give us an example of one of your case histories?
Sure. Here's a memorable one. Back around 2004, we were introduced to a widow by an estate planning attorney. Her husband was a very successful physician in a major Boston hospital. He died young of cancer about 2 years prior to us meeting this widow. The estate planning attorney had introduced us to her to see what we could do for the widow. It was tragic. The widow had just lost $400,000 in the market with Fidelity mutual funds after the dot-com meltdown. Fidelity, unbelievably, was recommending that she stay into the market for the long haul. But Fidelity didn't even know the widow was 70 years old and just recovering from breast cancer. Together with a $300,000 ill-timed withdrawal and a $400,000 loss, the family's account had just taken an economic loss of $700,000 in 36 months. Their account with Fidelity was down to $1.3 million from $2 million. The lady, a very wise Yankee, who I fondly remember, she stuck by me, I guess actually some of her children's wishes, but she was a child of the Depression, did not want to lose any more money. We structured 3 equity index annuity contract for her, a single premium immediate annuity for immediate income, and set up insurance trusts to protect the estate from taxes, and did a tremendous amount of gifting to her children and her grandchildren over 15 years. We gave her $85,000 a year in guaranteed income for 15 years for a total of $1.275 million. She also collected Social Security and military pension. We used cash from the husband's trust account sitting in the bank doing nothing. Purchased a beautiful vacation on the lake for the family, which they had a lot of wonderful summers of joy with. And when she died this past spring, we gave the heirs an additional $1.2 million left over from IRA and life insurance proceeds for the children and grandchildren, and hundreds of thousands in appreciation of the vacation home. The last time I visited her, she gave me a wonderful oil painting, which she did herself for helping her. I'll always cherish it. If she had stayed in the market like Fidelity had wanted her to, she would have been crushed, lost another $300,000 or so. So she gave us $1.3 million. The family got got back $2.4 million in benefits, income, and capital appreciation. Most importantly, we did this very safely, but it wasn't easy.
How can people find out more about what you can do for them? What do you do for fun?
Thanks. I'm very blessed. I have great children, fantastic friends, and a national fan base. I am, however, very boring. I read the Bible every day. I travel a good amount, and I give talks around the country. I had a radio show. I love what I do, and I write books. I go to the gym. I go to the beach. I'm incredibly grateful. I work with great people who care about what they do. I'm involved in the boards of some companies and on some charities as well. Too much is given, much is required. You can contact us by going to www.barrymdike.com, or you can email me directly at bdike@camh.com, or you can email Tracy Middleton here at the offices at tmiddleton@camnh.com, and our telephone is 603-929-7891.